The biggest football tournament in human history kicks off, and yet, right now, football fans across the world aren't just talking about the matches. They're not debating who'll win the Golden Boot or whether a certain legendary number 10 will finally bow out with one last World Cup title. No, right now, they're talking about water bottles. That's right, water bottles. Just days before the 2026 FIFA World Cup opening game, FIFA issued a last-minute rule change banning fans from bringing refillable water bottles into stadiums. Not drugs, not flares, water bottles. And the response from supporters around the world was immediate and furious. England fans group Free Lions called it, and I'm quoting here, a money grab. New York's mayor called it disgraceful. Doctors in Toronto publicly warned about heat-related health risks. FIFA eventually walked it back, partly, but the damage was already done. Because this wasn't just about water bottles, it was the latest in a long, long list of frustrations that have been building up around this tournament for months. The 2026 World Cup was supposed to be football's greatest celebration. 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 host nations, the most ambitious tournament structure ever designed. It was supposed to be the tournament that opened football up to an entirely new continent of fans, the tournament that broke every record and wrote a new chapter in the sport's history. And it still might be all of those things, but right now, just 48 hours before kickoff, the conversation surrounding this World Cup is louder and messier than anyone predicted. So what's really going on, and does it change what we're about to watch? Let's get into it. To understand where we are today, you need to understand what made this World Cup different from the very beginning. This is the first ever World Cup co-hosted by 3 nations, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. 16 host cities, 11 in the US alone, with 3 in Mexico and 2 in Canada. The tournament runs from June 11th to July 19th, covering 39 days and 104 matches, making it the longest and largest World Cup in history. The format changed too. Instead of 32 teams in 8 groups of 4, we now have 48 teams across 12 groups. The top 2 from each group advance, along with the 8 best third-place teams, creating a brand new round of 32. For football fans, that means more games, more nations, more stories. FIFA sold it as democracy in action, more countries getting a chance at the world stage, smaller footballing nations finally getting their shot. And on paper, that vision is real. Nations that have never appeared at a World Cup before are here. The excitement is genuine. But organizing a tournament of this scale across 3 countries with 3 different governments, 3 different legal systems, and thousands of miles of travel between venues, that was always going to create complications, and the complications came. The first ones most people noticed had nothing to do with football. They had to do with getting into the country. Here's where things get interesting and complicated. Over 30 countries currently face some form of U.S. travel restriction. Among them are 4 nations competing in the 2026 World Cup: Iran, Haiti, Côte d'Ivoire, and Senegal. Players have been granted exemptions to compete, but fans? That's a different story. Think about that for a moment. Imagine qualifying for the World Cup. Imagine being a supporter from Senegal or Ivory Coast, saving for months, following your national team through qualifiers, watching them earn their place on the biggest stage in football, and then being told you can't get a visa to actually attend the games. Supporters from Senegal reacted with open frustration at AFCON earlier this year when the restrictions were confirmed. One supporter told the Associated Press that if the U.S. was going to bar certain visitors from entering, it simply shouldn't have agreed to host the World Cup. That sentiment spread quickly. FIFA responded by launching what it called FIFA Pass, a priority visa appointment scheduling system created in coordination with the U.S. State Department. Supporters who bought tickets directly from FIFA and opted into the system could access priority interview slots for visitor visas. It was a practical solution to an unusual problem, but there was a catch, and there's always a catch with this tournament. If you bought your ticket through a third-party resale platform, you didn't qualify. FIFA Pass only applied to official purchasers, and as we'll get into shortly, getting an official ticket through FIFA has been its own ordeal. For Iranian fans, the situation carried an additional layer of complexity. Iran arrived in Tijuana, Mexico on June 7th, just days ago, ahead of their opening match. Their delegation had reported concerns about visa complications, and Iran's ambassador to Mexico publicly flagged the issue. A fragile ceasefire between Iran and the United States has been in place since April, following a period of direct conflict earlier this year. Iran's federation sold tickets to their 3 group stage games, then reported those tickets had been made unavailable, citing possible political interference, though without offering a specific explanation. The players are here, the team is here, but the cloud over their participation has never fully lifted. For Canada and Mexico's share of the tournament, the visa picture looks different. Fans traveling to watch games in Toronto or Vancouver or Guadalajara don't face the same entry complications as those heading to U.S. venues. But with 11 of 16 host cities located in the U.S., the access issue cuts deep. But that's only part of the story, because even fans who had no visa concerns, fans from Europe, from South America, from Asia, from nations with easy access to the U.S., have faced their own set of problems, and those problems come down to one thing: money.
The ticketing situation for this World Cup has been, by almost any measure, a disaster for ordinary supporters. FIFA used what it described as variable pricing, a demand-based system borrowed from the North American sports market. The idea was to adapt to local conditions, where concert tickets, NFL seats, and NBA games all fluctuate with demand. FIFA's president Gianni Infantino defended the approach, saying it simply reflected the realities of the U.S. marketplace. But the reality fans encountered was something else entirely. Group stage tickets that started at $60 in the initial draws were being relisted on FIFA's own official resale platform at prices ordinary people simply cannot afford. And the resale listings for marquee games, for the World Cup final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, some listings reached $2.3 million per seat. Not a luxury box, not a VIP package, a standard lower-tier seat. FIFA takes a 15% commission on all official resale transactions, which means the higher prices go, the more FIFA earns. Critics argue that the system was structurally designed to allow and even encourage these extremes. The New York and New Jersey attorneys general launched a joint investigation into FIFA's ticket practices. New York's AG Letitia James was direct in her statement, saying no one should be manipulated into paying sky-high prices and that fans should be able to trust the tickets they purchase will be the ones they receive. 5 million tickets were sold overall. Over 500 million users submitted applications during the third phase of sales alone, the highest demand ever recorded for any World Cup. That level of interest shows the global appetite for this tournament is real and enormous, but it also drove prices to heights that have locked out millions of fans who followed their teams through every qualifying campaign, every away trip, every sleepless night watching matches across time zones. And then, in the week before the tournament began, came the water bottle ban. Let's talk about that, because it tells you something important about where the friction is coming from. On June 2nd, FIFA quietly updated its Stadium Code of Conduct. The document previously stated clearly that fans could bring empty, transparent, reusable plastic bottles of up to 1 liter into stadiums. That clause disappeared. In its place, reusable water bottles may not be brought into the stadium. The Athletic obtained emails sent to ticket holders informing them of the change. The reason given was safety and security, specifically the risk of bottles being thrown. The problem? June and July in the southern United States is brutally hot. Daytime temperatures regularly climb into the mid to high 80s Fahrenheit. Some venues are open air. The Club World Cup held in the U.S. last summer drew widespread complaints from players and fans about the heat conditions. Even FIFA's own rules during this tournament include 3-minute hydration breaks for players in each half of every game.
So the situation was fans paying thousands of dollars for tickets, traveling thousands of miles, sitting in open-air stadiums in summer heat, and now being told they couldn't bring a water bottle. Toronto's chief medical officer raised health concerns publicly before the reversal. Canadian host city representatives clarified that Toronto and Vancouver's fan festival events would allow clear plastic bottles and would have refilling stations available. FIFA later reversed the full ban, walking back the restriction after the backlash exploded across media and social platforms. But the response itself, the confusion, the reversal, the late communication, added to a sense among supporters that this tournament's off-pitch decisions have been chaotic and reactive. Now, none of this is without precedent. Every World Cup comes with controversy. Every host nation faces criticism. Russia 2018, Qatar 2022, Brazil 2014. Each carried enormous off-pitch debates, and each still produced stunning, memorable football. What makes 2026 different isn't that problems exist. It's the scale and the combination of problems hitting simultaneously, and the context in which they're landing. When Qatar hosted the tournament, the travel and access issues were real, but they came with the understanding that the Gulf state was a single host with a specific set of regional constraints. Fans could largely plan around them. Here, the host is a multi-country, multi-city structure spread across a continent, touching different legal systems, different visa regimes, and different political climates. The assumption going in was that the openness of North America would make this the most accessible World Cup ever. For tens of millions of fans watching at home, it still might. But for the fans who actually bought tickets and made plans, the experience has tested that promise.
The bigger issue is this. Football's global appeal rests on the idea that the World Cup belongs to everyone. Not just to those wealthy enough to navigate sky-high resale markets, not just to those lucky enough to hold the right passport. The tournament's emotional power, the reason billions of people tune in, is rooted in the sense that this is shared, that anywhere on Earth you can feel the same thing at the same moment. When that access starts to fracture, when the tournament becomes something that ordinary fans can't enter, can't afford, and can't always travel to, that's worth paying attention to. Now, let's talk about what this all means for the players and the football itself, because however loud the noise gets off the pitch, the players have shown up ready. Argentina arrived with Lionel Messi confirmed to play, though manager Lionel Scaloni has been careful about managing his minutes. Messi, in what is widely understood to be his final World Cup, drew enormous crowds at training sessions, even in Auburn, Alabama. The anticipation around every minute he plays will be extraordinary. Fans who did manage to get tickets, and millions did, are in North America right now. The streets of New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Toronto, and Mexico City are filling with colors and flags. Even with all the complications, the atmosphere building around this tournament is unlike anything seen in these cities before. Football has long been growing in the United States, and this tournament is going to accelerate that growth significantly, regardless of the controversy surrounding it. The expansion to 48 teams means nations that have never experienced a World Cup before are bringing their supporters here. New stories will be written. Players who grew up dreaming of this moment will take the field for the first time. That energy is real, and it cannot be manufactured. So where does this go from here? What should we expect in the weeks ahead? FIFA will be watching the early matches closely, not just for the football, but for the operational reality of running a tournament of this scale across 3 countries. The Ebola-related travel health measures announced by all 3 host nations in recent days add another layer of logistics, with health screenings and precautionary protocols now part of the entry picture for fans and delegations alike. On tickets, the Attorney General investigations are unlikely to produce results during the tournament itself, but they set a precedent. Future World Cup hosts and FIFA's own commercial structure will face pressure to change how tickets are priced, allocated, and resold. On access, the visa and travel questions won't disappear. They'll define the conversations around which nations are comfortable hosting global events in the future and what obligations FIFA expects from host countries when it comes to guaranteeing access for all qualified nations' supporters. The best-case scenario from here is straightforward. The football takes over. The matches are compelling, the upsets arrive, the stars perform, and the tournament captures the world's attention in the way only a World Cup can. The logistics fade into the background, and what we remember is the football. The realistic challenge is that with 104 games spread across 39 days and a new knockout format, the sheer volume of the tournament will test fans' attention in new ways. Not every group stage match in a 48-team World Cup can carry equal weight. Managing that experience, making every game feel meaningful, is something football is still figuring out. So here's where we are. 2 days before the biggest football tournament ever staged, we have a tournament that broke records before the first ball was kicked. Over 5 million tickets sold, 48 nations, 16 host cities, 104 matches. And we have a long list of legitimate concerns that real football supporters have raised about access, affordability, and the experience of attending games. Fans locked out by visa restrictions, fans priced out by a resale market with no ceiling, and fans told days before kickoff that they couldn't bring water into a summer stadium, before FIFA reversed that decision under pressure. The questions raised by this tournament go beyond 2026. They're about what the World Cup is for, who it belongs to, whether the growth of football's biggest event is happening in a way that serves the sports and its fans, or whether it's drifting towards something more exclusive, more commercial, less connected to the grassroots passion that made football what it is. Those questions don't have easy answers, and they won't be resolved by the time the final whistle blows in New Jersey on July 19th. But what will happen between now and then is football. Great football, hopefully. Heartbreak and joy, certainly. Moments that remind us why we're all here in the first place. So what do you think? Has all of this changed how you're feeling about the 2026 World Cup? Does the off-pitch noise affect your excitement, or do you tune it out the moment the ball starts moving? And which team do you think arrives at this tournament best prepared to take advantage of all the chaos around them?